Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first HITMC Call-in Meetup. That's call-in as in CALL-IN, not my name, although it is kind of a nice play on words, I guess. Totally unintentional. But yeah, welcome to this experiment. Thank you to all of you who have joined. We are going to get started in a minute. We're just going to give people a few minutes to get logged in. But thank you to all of you who've signed up. This should be a pretty exciting program. I'm very excited. And as you can see, I am wearing my HITMC t-shirt to get into character, if you will, or get into the mood. And yeah, just really excited to get started here. So just a couple of housekeeping and ground rules. How this is going to work is our invisible producer, Brittany Quimby. Hello, Brittany.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, she's online with us. Brittany Quimby will be looking at the attendees, and whoever puts up their hand, she is going to choose one of you who puts up their hand and bring you on the air with John and I. And what we're going to do is just basically have a conversation with you and ask you a couple of questions. You can offer some comments and some insights. It'll be a lot of fun. And then after you've had your chance, then we'll bring on someone else on air, and we'll just kind of cycle through for the next hour and hopefully get as many of you on air with us as we can. And it should be a lot of fun. So John, welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks, Colin. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we didn't choose the same HITMC t-shirt. That would have been embarrassing.
Yeah, although I think this week we've been, 2 out of 3 days we've been wearing the same shirt. So obviously we have the same wardrobe.
It's our new work from home policy. We have to wear the same clothes to feel connected.
That's right. That's right. We should actually publish that maybe. This is the HITMC wardrobe for the week, right? Wear this shirt on this day, this shirt on this day. Yeah, that'll be fun. Well, I'm looking forward to this. This is kind of an experiment, John. If you and I talk a lot about this for our podcast that we do, but just trying to mimic a lot of sports radio, right, where you have the call in. So this is kind of our version of that. So it should be fun.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. I think the side chat might be as interesting as the online chat. So I'm sure people will be chiming in there as well. And if we see those comments, we'll incorporate them.
Absolutely. So just a couple of technical things. So when you do come on air, please remember to click the little green icon for the camera so that we can see you. And because we want to see you, that's the whole point of this meetup. We want to see your face and see your smiles. So just if you're kind of not really sure what's showing right now, you might want to go back behind you and clean up whatever you need to clean up, so that when you do click when we do click you on air, you're not kind of leaving. Because if we do see something, we're going to ask you about it if there's something interesting behind you.
No judgment zone, Colin. No judgment. We have no judgment.
And it doesn't matter what you're wearing or what your hair looks like. It's all fine, because John and I, yes, we clearly haven't spent a lot of time on our wardrobe today. All right.
If any kids come, I'll invite my kids so that everyone feels comfortable with kids in the background. It's fine.
There you go.
That's the new normal.
That's the new normal. Yeah, and so today's topic, two questions really. One is, what are you doing to cope in this sort of work at home, this COVID-19 environment? How are you connecting with your fellow coworkers? What are you doing maybe from a marketing or PR or communication standpoint? Share whatever you'd like to share about how you're dealing with the current situation. And then also we want to know what all of you are interested in the next conversation. What is the topic you would like us to cover on our next call-in meetup? All right. So all we have to do now is just anyone who would like to, raise their hand and be first on air, just go ahead and do that, and we will, Brittany will choose you and get you on.
Yeah, and while she gets it on, it's interesting, Colin, you and I have been working from home for a while. You've been in for a couple of years. I think I'm up to 10 years working from home. So, my brother jokingly texted me and said, hey, this is just kind of like early summer for you, right? It's basically the same as summer. And I'm like, kind of, but there's certainly other stresses going on than were going on before, and plus in summer you plan for it, right? And the kids can leave the house and can go around, so no doubt it's been a much more stressful work from home situation for me and for my wife than other times. She's still trying to do some school with the kids while I'm grinding away working, so some things I have found, this is a really ironic thing that I used to do, and now I've had to modify. I would tell people, like, sometimes in the morning I would just drive to the store to get a bagel, just because I wanted a like change in scenery to kind of start my day. And so I think that principle applies to a lot of people, where it's like, okay, how do I go from the insanity of the morning and breakfast and routine with the kids and kind of like create a disconnect that starts the day? So I've found something, maybe it's just a walk around the block to start your day, since you probably don't want to go get a bagel. Maybe it's driving to the coffee and, getting a coffee from, assuming they're still open in your area. I don't know, there's something mentally, and I'm not a psychologist, but I found it's really helpful for me to do that and kind of break it up and say, okay, I just went from taking care of the kids, now I'm going to start, my work day. If you have that option, I think that's a good one that I've found is really helpful for me.
So Brittany, who we got first up on the air?
First up, we have Jim Tate. So Jim, I went ahead and made you a panelist so we can all hear you now.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay, guys?
We can.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. How are you doing, Jim?
Okay, good to see you, John and Colin. I don't have a camera hooked up where I am right now, but one thing I was curious about is, I know y'all had a lot of plans, networking, promotional, had a lot of vendors you were working with for HIMSS, and that had to be canceled. Obviously, that was the right thing to do. And so I think it'd be helpful for all of us to hear how y'all were able to, what you've done to regroup and repurpose and redo things you were hoping to do that week. What was your experience like? And I'm sure it's ongoing.
Yeah, that's an excellent question,
Yep.
Jim. And yeah, I think first of all, we were all disappointed that we weren't able to get together as a group en masse at HIMSS. But in hindsight, knowing where we are now, that's probably the best decision that was made, not to have 45,000 people all together in a convention hall. Well, I think one of the obvious, I'll start with one of the obvious things and then turn it over to John. But one of the obvious things that came out of not having HIMSS in person was moving a lot of what we were planning online. So whether it was some of the meetups, we've been doing them now virtually as webinars. That seems to have gone over really well. We've been attracting quite a number of attendees to those events. Instead of the networking, we're trying to do things like this, like we're just trying to connect with the community through these other ways. And I know some of the folks who are on this call today have come up with ways like virtual dance parties, happy hours, and things just to be able to connect with people. But in terms of maintaining momentum, this is something that has been difficult for a lot of companies, because obviously a lot of their customers are now 100% focused on battling the pandemic. And so what we're really finding and what we're trying to do is help get some of those stories out there so that when it does turn around, they're ready with a lot of good content and good other things, because right now you're just not able to drum up as many leads as they were in the past. I don't know, John, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that was key for us, was turning it all virtual as quickly as possible. And, I think our vendors that were sponsoring different things we were doing at HIMSS really appreciated that. We had one vendor that, quite frankly, I was a little concerned about how effective the meetup was going to go at HIMSS. I thought it would be all right, and I wasn't too worried because we were going to record it and we'd be able to push it out after the fact as well. But because obviously what went down, we turned it virtually, and they had over 200 people sign up for the virtual event, which I think is well and beyond what they would have had at HIMSS. Now, they would have gotten it with the recording, but there's just something about live that is a little more interesting and people want to participate in. And so, it was interesting in that case. I think they actually got more value from the virtual than they would have at HIMSS, which is kind of interesting to look at, right? So, I think it depends on what you're doing and depends on your audience. We had others that weren't quite as successful. I think it was maybe more the topic and some things. and even some timing and whatnot. But we've seen a mixed bag there. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves, because we still have a number of those still coming up. But we're seeing some sign up for it, and a fair number of people want to sign up, and maybe they'll watch the recording later as well. So having that option available, and to Colin's point, we see a number of people still doing content as a way to drive their marketing, because content can last well beyond the crisis, and also positions you well from a search engine optimization perspective and things of that nature.
Right.
One that thing I'll mention from the marketing standpoint, it is amazing. Anybody who's remotely involved with health information technology and in the marketplace suddenly has a telehealth application. And, I mean, everybody does. I mean, you either have a cure for COVID-19 or you've got a telehealth platform ready to go. And so you can see a giant wave of marketing that's taking place there. I mean, it's almost overwhelming to try and sort through all of it.
Yeah, and it's something that I'll be interested to hear some comments from whoever else we bring on the air. There is so much noise about telehealth right now that I don't think the real telehealth players are being heard, right? Like, yes, everyone's sort of launching a little add-on or an app to their other platform or claiming that they have a telehealth platform. And so it's really hard to differentiate if you're not familiar with this space. And also, I have to, I wonder, like, how many people are actually responding to those right now? I mean, like, is someone already really looking at implementing one right in the middle of this? I guess it's possible, which is why the marketing is happening. But it's interesting, because you'd figure these people like don't have the time to do a 12-day implementation of a telemedicine platform. They probably just adopt WebEx, right? Because those HIPAA rules have been lifted. I'll just adopt that for now.
Right. Well, I don't want to go into too much technical stuff. That's not what this is about. But you're right. I've seen a lot of practices who've just said, get me telemedicine now, and you could just do essentially a FaceTime if you want to, and just document it in your EHR, and and that's it. But I'll get off my soapbox. Thanks for doing this today, guys, and I'll listen to the rest of the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. All right, Brittany, who's up next?
So up next we have Jane Sarason Khan. I hope I'm saying the name right. Jane, you are on air.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
How you doing, Jane?
Hey, Jane, how are you?
Can you see
That
me?
healthy thinker.
No, we can't see you just yet. You gotta just click that little camera icon.
Where's the camera? I'm sorry.
It's right near the microphone icon, and the top should be.
Oh, I got it. Thank you. Here it is. Maybe that worked.
There you go. Hey, good to see you, Jane.
Thank you for doing this. So, like the two of you, I've been working at home for like 20 years. And so it was natural. So the first week, the HIMSS week, when we were home, all my clients from pharma and tech and consumer goods who were shepherded home to work called and asked me for telecommuting advice. How do you set up a home office? So I could have started a whole new business, but did not. But I found in the last 3 weeks, there's been an evolution, a morphing of people getting used to the new normal of working at home, which some clients like the IBMs of the world, they've been working at home forever. But pharmas have not, and a lot of other companies. Last week, because a lot of the work I do is in person, it's speaking. Clients said, stay tuned, we're going to move it to virtual town halls and webinars. And by last Thursday or Friday, they started to get it together. And then this week, Monday and Tuesday and today, I've been doing more online like this with groups. So the real winners in this pandemic economy, the COVID-19 economy, are Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Best Buy, who can send Geek Squad in if they're going into people's homes. But really, there's a lot of winners in this economy. It's not all, I mean, obviously restaurants and retail and stuff are on hold. But on the encouraging front, people are changing workflows. And I think if this goes on for many months, which I believe it will, I think there'll be more people working at home, more virtual meetings. And the real question, because one of the projects that I'm working on pivoted to a scenario planning of what's healthcare going to look like 1, 3, 5 years from now. I mean, one of our uncertainties is, will we ever convene in big groups again, to your point? And I think, John, of our annual meeting at CES in the press room, will there ever be 140,000 people from around the world in one place? And I honestly think that's an uncertainty right now.
It's a reasonable uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
It's worth considering the question. You know, my personal take is that I think we will. I think we'll have it, but I think it will be, you know, it'll be a little different, right? The tenor of it will be different. But, you know, as I read someone recently said, you know, us as humans, we want to connect, right? And so, you know, I think that I think we need a few things in place, right? We need the healthcare system to be able to support what's coming, right? So that if you do get sick, you can be treated quickly. You know, we need a few of those things in place before we can get together in groups. But once they're in place, then it will be more like the flu, right? Where we might have it, but the healthcare system has a way of treating it and has a way of isolating it and understanding it, diagnosing it, et cetera, right? You know, there are some interesting things as far as, will the antibodies kick in and allow for group meetings, but you need a card that says I have the antibodies and I've done the test. You know, that one's I don't know where that's headed, right? Is it going to be part of our driver's license verification that says, yeah, we have the COVID-19 antibodies and so therefore we should be allowed an event? I don't know. Hopefully, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that there's some value there, but I'm hopeful that we don't need to go that direction, that there's some other solutions. I just think this is valuable, but in person is just hard to replicate even online.
I think one of the things that's definitely going to come as a result of this, like I hope, like you, John, that we don't have to, you know, present the card or get the test, you know, like walk through some sort of COVID scanner before we go into the exhibit hall or something. But you know, if such a thing will exist. But, you know, I also think one thing I do think, and you can see it already, is the tolerance for anybody coughing, sneezing in public now is like way down here. Right. I think now if you do that, you're guaranteed to get these dirty looks. People will stare at you. You'll probably be asked to leave restaurants now, right now, if that happens. So then to me, it's a good thing, but horrible at the same time, because now this is the new social norm. Like, you cannot be sick in public, and if you are, you're going to get called out, and as we should have probably all along, right? But
well, that's a problem though, because I've been coughing on this, but it's allergies, right? Which Colin knows I cough every single podcast.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's just going to be a new reality. I think the tolerance level for somebody who is sneezing in the corner continuously, let's say, not just once in a while, is going to be almost nil now in certain parts of the world, where they're just going to ask you to leave. And what are you going to say, right? And so it'll be interesting. So I'm hoping that will allow us to get back to, you know, getting some get-togethers. But I think you're right, Jane, in the sense that we may start off very small. It'll be the small gatherings first. I think the big ones, even though they might try, will be much smaller than before, because people will see it as risky. But I think there's just too much business to be had from in-person events that eventually it will go back if we don't have another wave.
Mm-hmm. I think that question about the credential of the blood test is going to be interesting. My husband just flew back from Brussels on Friday. He got out just in time before they closed the borders. He would have gotten out, but it would have been more onerous. But he was talking today to one of his French bank clients, a very big bank, one of the biggest banks in the world. And they said they anticipate getting back to work in mid-May. And they're way ahead of us on their curve. But everyone who comes back to the office has to get a test and present test results to come back to the office. And the question then becomes, how often will they compel people to get tested? And I thought, well, there's a new business. My friend Raman Bastani, who founded Healthvana, starting with HIV/AIDS, so you could show your viral load to a prospective person you hook up with in the bar. All of a sudden, and they're doing COVID testing now. Now, so you can now get your COVID test through the cloud to your app. Well, there could be a market for these things in some countries that have more of a surveillance culture, and it could be that in the EU, this evolves that way. And here, not so much, because we don't have that surveillance culture or tolerance for it yet. But again, as I look at scenarios, we have many wild cards that the longer this goes on and the deeper the recession goes, because there will be a recession, all bets are off for certainty. Like there's a lot of interesting things that could happen. Anyway, my time will be up, but I just want to thank you for doing this. So socially, every night at the cocktail hour, my husband and I are doing friend meetups via Zoom every single night, because we miss our friends, and particularly he's been gone for a couple of months. So it's been sweet to catch up, and just being with you now is a real joy. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that, Jane. We do appreciate your time, and always such amazing insights. All your articles and everything you're publishing is just fantastic at this point. So
it's unbelievable how much harder the last 3 weeks I've worked, and I work hard all the time, but I will tell you, I'm going to bed early and sleeping like a baby, even with COVID anxiety, because I have to be on this all the time. I can't not listen to the president every day. I can't not, I wish I couldn't once in a while. So it's hard, but we persist.
Well, we appreciate everything you're doing, Jane. Thanks for being on the show today.
Love you both. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Okay, Brittany, who we got next?
Up next, we have Justin Campbell. Justin, you are on the air.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, Justin.
Come here, bud.
Looking good. Do we
Look
get
at
to see
that.
the baby too? Oh, we get a dog.
No, I got my
look at that.
mate with me today. Join.
Oh, look at that. Instantaneously, all of our happiness levels have gone up now.
He really enjoys working, participating in some conference calls. Hey guys, a few things I want to make mention. Obviously, we had to shift gears quite a bit in the past couple weeks with HIMSS, and that was really, as people mentioned, just a blessing in disguise. I want to mention some things that we're witnessing at our organization at Galen from a marketing perspective.
Sure.
People still are accessible for deals we have in the pipeline. Our team is still able to get access to these clients that they've shifted to working from home. They become more responsive. However, we know there's going to be a limit to that, once, some localities see a surge in cases. RFPs represent a decent amount of our business. We've seen a lot of those get pushed out. So obviously folks who had RFPs that they're working on have delayed those to the fall. And just some best practices I've witnessed on LinkedIn. Tribal knowledge is key right now. So organizations that are looking to spin up telehealth, telemedicine, they're having to rapidly scale up their VPNs, rapidly scale up remote access. Providing that tribal knowledge is key, and they're looking for it. So it's important to share best practices and lessons learned. The other thing David Chu I saw posted, which he since walked back a little bit, is CIOs do not want to be sold to right now. There was a series that Bill Russell with This Week in Health IT has run, where he's talked to CIOs, and they're in rapid response. You talked about some of the hard hit areas like Washington, New York, California. Anything we do to them is additive noise, and it could risk the relationship long term. So I'll tell you what we're doing at Galen. Immediately following the HIMSS cancellation, I told our CEO we are shifting gears. It's all about content right now. So I'm no longer going to hold the microphone out and broadcast. My sole focus is white paper research, white paper development, case study development. Obviously, you're not going to have access to clients for all of the case study development, but you do what you can on your end. And then, the other things I think about too are or have contemplated, and I don't know what other people on the call have witnessed, is think about EMR vendors like Epic and what that's going to do to their go lives. A big part of the Epic model is having elbow-to-elbow support with the end users. So how is that really being affected by all this? I'll pause there. That was the input that I had. I'd encourage any questions you have for me based upon what else we've witnessed.
Well, those are
great insights. I would highlight Will Wider tweeted a couple times. His first tweet was something to the effect of, my schedule just changed for the week, and then he did a follow-up tweet, and he's a CIO in Middle America. And then his follow-up to the original tweet of my schedule just changed for the week that was the biggest understatement ever as far as how much COVID-19 was going to take of his time. So I think your point's well made. The exception is there are some areas, for example, the telemedicine that Jim Tate talked about. I think there are some of the communication protocols, some of the chatbots, some of those very COVID-19 related things, rolling out more VPN, some very specific security around coronavirus. There are opportunities where they're spending without thinking even. So, I think that's another opportunity for some organizations to be able to, and for the most part, it's not about marketing. From what I've seen, it's about tapping into the relationships you already have where you can service them in a very specific way. And I think that's been really successful. And then, just to add on to that, I think we need to prepare ourselves for a 2 to 6 months from now replacement cycle of, hey, I rushed this telemedicine implementation, or I rushed this whatever implementation for some sort of patient communication, and now I need to do it the right way. And how am I going to do it the right way? So I think those are some opportunities as well to just add on to what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, we've thought a lot about too what this is going to do to the I had a cough in my elbow. Excuse me. What this is going to do to hospitals, right? Their bottom line. There was an article that the CEO of a hospital or health system in Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan, authored, and he said, "Listen, I don't have the reserves. This is going to be crushing." And so if we start to critically think about this months from now, because we have not even come close to seeing the surge based upon some of the data that's out there. But what's this going to do to their bottom line? For us, we're going to focus on content creation, especially around application decommissioning, which is one of our core competencies, because we feel like after the dust settles on this, there's going to be even more consolidation. If you have rural hospitals that were already scraping to get by, you'll perhaps see a lot more acquisition as they become less solvent. So curious to get your perspective on that. Colin, I know you live in a different environment with provincial systems in order, but I wanted to also hear your take on what's going on in Toronto, because I've talked to my sister who lives up there and get a little bit of sense of it, but it'd be curious to hear how things are going up there.
Yeah, the scale of the problem is similar. We're nowhere near New York or Washington State or anything like that, but it is getting worse, and I think we're a bit behind the U.S. in terms of our wave and where it's coming and when it's coming. But there are hospitals here that are starting to run out of supplies, and the doctors are burnt out, and we've thankfully done a lot of testing up here, but nowhere near the level that we should be at. So yeah, I think we're just sort of mirroring what's happening in the US and in Italy, just months, a few weeks or a few days behind. The interesting thing is, the twist is, of course, there's no costs up here, right? That was one thing they didn't have to deal with in terms of the government was going to absorb all the costs for it anyway. So there was no law that had to be passed about no one being charged for the test, or is there a cost for what happens if you do get COVID-19? Who's going to pay for your stay in the hospital? That, of course, is not an issue up here. But we still have the issues of sick leave and a lot of restaurants closing and everything. And I was just going to respond to one thing you said. I think John's right in the sense of there are certain technologies that CIOs might be interested in hearing about right now, obviously ones that they don't have. but I'm going to bet a lot of them are turning to their existing vendor pool and going, okay, who's got something? Because I don't want to be bothered with another contract at this moment, right? Like, so even though you might have a better application right now, I can't go through legal to get another contract. I can't go through procurement or whatever rules I have to get this in here. I suspect they have to go with somebody they've already doing business with, because that's the least resistance. So I think one of the things is they may be implementing suboptimal solutions right now, but it's just because that's the fastest way to get something done.
Right. And I actually witnessed that. A client at Baptist Health in Jacksonville, she issued the same thing. She's like, listen, I've got trusted vendors in my Rolodex, already have an MSA in place with them. So they'll be the people I call first. And that's an important part for marketers. You might divert all your attention to farming your existing account rather than trying to get new logos in this type of environment.
That's what I was kind of trying to say, is that, yeah, I think, if you're going to do any sort of marketing right now, the highest bang for your buck is farming your existing accounts, and then also looking at potentially partner relationships with somebody who already has a relationship with those organizations that you want to do business with. Those might be worthwhile investments of your time.
I'll throw in one other thing on the consolidation or the funding levels for hospitals. I think it's even more true on the ambulatory side, where many of them aren't allowed to even do the elective procedures that funded their business. And I heard one theory out there today that said, hey, with all of these practices really going to be in financial trouble, I wonder if that's an opportunity for PE firms and others to consolidate the ambulatory space even more. So it might be part of your strategy to think about, and obviously you have to figure out what you think is going to happen there. But if you go after the ambulatory market, you may want to make some more work and effort in thinking about, okay, what about the PE firms that are rolling up ambulatory, or the health systems that are rolling up ambulatory? So that's something to watch as well on the ambulatory side.
One final thought, gents. Sorry, I lost my canary. Work from home problems. But it's interesting. People talked about having to validate that you don't have COVID. As with anything, we're going to have just a spike of reaction to this, and then you'll probably get to a comfort level after some amount of time, because it's a one in 100 year event. But an interesting technology they're rolling out is actually using blockchain to capture whether or not you have the antibody for COVID-19. So I'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for having me call in today, and look forward to more people discussing.
All right, thanks Justin. All right, Brittany, who we got up next? Maybe we can get two people on this time. We'll try a twofer this time.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we have coming in hot. We have Molly True, and we have Beth Cooper.
All right.
Hey, Molly. Hey, Beth.
Hello.
Hey, Molly, good to see you.
Yeah, not wearing my HITMC t-shirt, but anyway, I'm here.
All right. Oh, we have Beth
so
too. Hey.
Molly's from Lenovo
and got my HITMC t-shirt.
Oh, that was smart. Yeah, I'm here from Lenovo. So anyway, I was just going to weigh in on what to do to keep yourself sane during this time. So
sure.
I'm keeping up my exercise.
trying
to. So I'm actually a part of a camp that we go to outside. They're still letting us do that for the time being, but we can also do it over Zoom. So like you said, Zoom is cash. I think like Jane said, Zoom and Teams are cashing in. And then the other thing is the schedule. I'm not doing this great every day, but like John was saying, getting up and getting a shower before I start work, and instead of just sitting down in my pajamas and working, that doesn't really motivate you every day. So and then I had a question. So Lenovo was planning on launching a remote patient monitoring solution at HIMSS. And so now we're like grappling with, okay, it's probably not the greatest time to do it right now, because like your blog said, we don't want to say, oh, here's your perfect solution for COVID-19. We're a Chinese company. We want to stay far, far away from that. So so anyway, any thoughts on ideas? I think we're thinking about tying it to the HIMSS digital stuff once there is some kind of platform for vendors. But anyway, just getting your thoughts on that. If you think this will die down, I don't know. We don't know like how long this whole cycle is going to last, right? So
Yeah, well, I'll comment and then maybe we can let Beth comment too. So when I wrote that piece around not using COVID-19 as part of your marketing, I want to clarify to say what I meant by that was don't use COVID-19 as your lead. Like don't
Yeah.
put COVID-19 in your subject line and don't fill your copy with, well, we could solve COVID-19 or we can help with this. No one wants to read that stuff unless you sell PPE and a test and all those kinds of things. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to go to market and say, hey, we've got a solution that'll help patients being at home. That is a true statement of fact. Now, obviously, that's a very acute need right now, but it is something that you can go to market with because you're not saying it's COVID. You're just saying, hey, listen, we help patients be at home. And while they're at home, you can monitor them. We can provide this solution, that solution, or this technology, this capability. Because I think people who are maybe not have the acute need are still looking for solutions because they're also hopefully starting to think about what happens afterwards. Right. So I think there is a play that you have or can go to market without saying COVID. You can still say, hey, we help patients be at home, or we improve patient safety, and we do these things because those are still important. And that may be a softer way to continue to go to market. Maybe not as strong as you want to, but it's still a way to get the word out there.
Yeah, no, fair point.
I don't know, Beth, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say Molly and I did not even plan this, but I was going to ask a similar sort of discussion point. Beth from KMB, I think everybody knows we were a health tech PR and marketing agency. One of our clients is Advanced MD, and they do have a telehealth portion of their cloud-based practice management software. And I read your article and loved it, Colin. Completely agree with you. We're feeling like we need to be super, super sensitive, that we're not appearing to be like opportunistic, like, oh, hey, we've got a product that would be great for you right now. And capitalizing on this terrible tragedy. But in the same vein, like you were saying, this could help a lot of people. So I would just love to hear as much discussion around the topic as possible. I think you said a lot of great points to it. All I know is what we're trying to do is see if there's any ways of making it easier for people to implement, if there's any way we can give it away for lower cost or for free to people who need it, especially during this time, so that it really does show that we're trying to be helpful and we're not trying to be, opportunistic.
Okay.
I like the opportunistic idea. I think the other thing that Colin pointed out in his article was don't overstate what you can do, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think people run into trouble because people are calling all sorts of BS on that, right? So I think if you offer a realistic pathway for them to start using it, then that makes sense, right? And I think people will respond to it. It goes back to HITMC principle number 2, right? Which is actually provide them something that they need, right? And right now that's something that they need. And so, for me, I think if you do it in a thoughtful way, I think people will be open to it. I saw another tweet that said someone was asking for an 11-minute meeting. It's like, that's a BS kind of pitch, right? Because one, it's not going to be 11 minutes, and two, that you want to do much more. So just, don't try to pull the wool over my eyes, just be upfront, honest, and frank about what you really are able to do and what you're not able to do. And I think you'll actually gain people's trust through that.
Yeah,
hey Beth,
completely.
Since we've got you on here, Beth, what are you doing to keep sane at this time, being at home?
Oh, well, I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys. Our agency, a lot of us work remotely full time. I go into the office 4 days a week. Everybody who are based in our Stanford headquarters, we all work Fridays remotely. So we're very, very lucky that we've already been kind of set up for this. It's been a bit weird that we don't see each other every day. So we were one of the teams that did a happy hour, and that was very nice. And I think I only have 2 other coworkers on this call, so I'm going to let you know what we're planning for next week. I think I only saw Gemma and Chintan on here. We're sending everybody a little stuffed bee in the mail because we're K and B, and so that they each have something to, sort of have a unifying presence on our video chats. And then at the end of the week, we're going to ask them to style the bee. So that we can help them get their creativity juices flowing.
Nice.
So we ask a question of the day, and it's definitely something that has to do with working with your entire family at home with you. So we get a lot of interesting and fun stories every morning from all of our coworkers. So we're all very aware that this is a very difficult situation that we're in, but we're trying our best to, you know, be optimistic and stay positive and keep our community and our culture very strong. So I would also be very interested to hear what other people are doing that's sort of creative, because we're very much expecting this will last for a couple more weeks.
Yeah, I think if I just had to worry about working from home, I would be fine. But the homeschooling my kids at the same time is, yeah. So it's like my cousin said, she said, homeschooling day 3, they're graduated. Count done. You know, and I was like,
I graduated them already.
yeah, exactly.
So we should have known that Beth would have an arts and crafts idea. So that was now that she says it, it's obvious. But you know, and I think anyone that has ideas, you should share it on Twitter with the hashtag HITMC, and we can all see the different ideas that people are sharing. Even if you're not hopping on video, at least tweet it out with the hashtag HITMC, and we can check them out later. But to Molly's point, you know, we had a discussion in a DM group I'm in that talking about the challenge of that, right? Like, how do I do my job? How do I manage my kids, ensure they're getting education, that they're not on electronics too much? And, you know, a couple of people shared some really insightful things as far as like, let's not give each other a hard time, right? Let's not give ourselves a hard time. Like, if we're doing our best and doing what we can to help them, they're going to be all right. You know, they go for 3 months in summer without school, guess what? They're going to be all right off of this too, right? Yeah. So, you know, if we're doing our best, you know, we probably need to give ourselves a little bit of a break. And it's okay if they, you know, are watching Frozen for the 6th time. You know, that's totally normal, and that we should be okay. You know, and I saw another thing that I thought was very well said, that, you know, probably at the end of this, you know, they're not going to remember that they studied a little bit extra, but they are going to remember the emotional tear. You know, how much did my parents love me? How much did they care for me? And maybe if we focus on that, you know, I think our kids, because I have 4, as you know, that they're going to be all right. So anyway, there's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks for that, John.
Well, thanks for doing this, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, same here.
Right.
Great to see you guys.
Great to see you. Thanks for being on the show. I feel like I should say show rather than meetup, but it feels like it's a show. But thank you to both of you. All right, Brittany, who we got?
If you want another way to, yeah, real quick, if you want another way, check out Beth's pictures. Those are calming. Those are amazing. So her pictures are, that's good treatment for coronavirus damage.
Beth's pictures are awesome.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Cool.
All right, Brittany, who we got up next?
We are gonna go to Larry Kaiser and Sarah Benight, my girl.
Nice.
Sarah and Larry.
That's good.
If we get a baby, a dog, maybe Sarah's cats.
Just one.
Nice.
Just one cat?
How you doing,
Just
Sarah?
one cat.
Welcome, Sarah. It looks like Larry's connecting, but his audio is not on.
Hey guys.
Hey, how are you?
Larry's like, I'm not going on with Sarah. I'm not doing it.
He wouldn't say that. Who wouldn't want to be on the air with you, Sarah? But welcome.
While we're waiting for Larry, the reason I raised my hand, it sounds so official. We are seeing people scrambling for telehealth right now, and in our neck of the woods, it's mostly related to how do we schedule for that, and how do we manage making sure people can schedule without inflating our current call volumes and overwhelm our current agents. So looking at online and digital processes for that, as well as pop-up testing clinics. And a lot of it really isn't using necessarily the telehealth really cool ones out there. It's just getting something to provide a video connection and an appointment in time of this craziness going on right now. So we are seeing that, and we're seeing a bigger need for that, as well as text messaging, message broadcast. A lot of vendors out there are doing, free solutions or helping people get things implemented really quickly. So, you know, for people like us, there are a lot of things that, hey, Larry, a lot of things we can still market, but you have to be really careful. It's not really marketing. It's like to your point, where your clients, we already have that MSA in place. We already have SLAs agreed to. We've gone through legal. It can be done very quickly within less than 24 hours in our case. And we're really not just, I wouldn't call it marketing to clients. Right now, we're very focused on communicating with them, letting them know you have this in your built-in technology already. Here's how you use it. Let us help you if you don't understand how to use it. Maybe you've had a turnover in staff and they weren't trained on this broadcast system, or here are some ways you should be communicating with your patients. So I think a lot of ours is that educational side right now, but that doesn't keep everyone asking from what are we doing for lead gen, right? People still have to pay the bills.
Yes,
I think your
I don't
point's
think we can-
interesting, though.
Go ahead, Larry.
It's going to set us up.
I was going to say,
Here,
for some
real quick,
reason I
just
was
gonna-
connected, but I wasn't connected. But I've been wanting to say for the entire time, a long-time listener, first-time caller. I was the first person to say that, so thankfully. I was hoping no one else was going to say that. Yeah, I mean, I was going to piggyback a little bit on what Justin said, because, you know, we're somewhat in the same business for the most part, but our biggest thing was getting on our projects, getting people remote so they could be in a more safe place. And of course, there's at the elbow, which I've been calling, you know, at the arm's length recently. So we still, you know, we have very limited people on site still doing stuff, but almost everybody's remote. We've had a couple of projects get postponed till Q3, Q4, and one or two that ended early. But because we've been able to get everybody remote, we hopefully should have no reduction in staff or anything. You know, I've been pushing the communications aspect a lot. So we published a note from our CEO yesterday, and you know, we're always doing content, but I'm focusing a little bit more on PSAs right now, on things that people can do to, I know it's like beating a dead horse, you know, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, but you know, and social distancing. But I feel like the more
to touch my face and I was like, don't.
the more people that say it, maybe the more people listen to it. So that's been our big thing. You know, like my brother who works in fintech, you know, his company is a startup and he already had layoffs and he's already taken a pay cut. You know, so I think for the most part, healthcare companies will persevere. From a marketing perspective, it's a fine line. You know, I had to go to the office one day last week to ship some of our sales reps some stuff to do their drops because they're not they just don't want to call people right now. They feel it's inappropriate. You know, and unfortunately, you know, other than being a staffing company, we have 9 different service lines. We can offer a lot of different stuff, including helping with telehealth. So we've just been focusing on content around that and walking that fine line and trying to be that partner, while at the same time also trying to continue to answer the RFPs we have. We only had 1 RFP get canceled. We had 2 last week, 2 this week that we're submitting. But it's a constant challenge. I think it's going to continue to be a challenge. But I think in the end, healthcare is going to change drastically moving forward, I think. I think a lot of what's going into play right now with telehealth, with working remote and everything, a lot of companies are going to change. I have a feeling you're going to see a large number of organizations get away from having home offices now when they see, oh, gee, everybody can work remote and we are still being productive. I mean, my office is 15 miles away and I work from home 2 or 3 days a week because I have obviously the newborn, but still, you know, marketing is not something is easy to work remote doing, quite frankly. And my team and I have our weekly stand-up call on Thursdays. It's on video chat, 2 West Coast, 2 East Coast. But nothing dropping us too crazy yet.
Cool. Sorry, John, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no worries. No, I mean, if just your guys' comments made me think, like, is the opportunity right now that we should be taking advantage of is if we act well for our current customers and we take care of them in this crisis, will that be an opportunity we can leverage 6 months from now and use as a testimonial and a case study, right? And of course, everyone's distracted by the baby, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, John, we didn't catch anything you just said because.
No, John, I absolutely, I heard what you said, and yes, we're already planning that. Like, catching those stories now, because what we're doing now can be applicable to any disaster situation. You know, we dealt with Hurricane Harvey with our hospitals down in the Houston area. We service a large healthcare system in Florida that dealt with a very serious nightclub incident. And so these are systems that people or processes or procedures that people should have in place. And I think this is teaching everyone a lesson about moving people into a remote situation when you need to. I think we're going to come out of this with some really good best practices, what worked and what didn't, what moved the needle, what didn't. And I think right now I'm trying to capture those stories so we can share them later and get people thinking about it a little bit more of, are you prepared to move 50% of your workforce to a work from home situation? You know, we've moved most of our people from home or to home, but we do have some agents that, because of the systems in place, still we haven't been able to untether them from the location they're at. But that means pulling them off the phone once a week for some deep cleaning and sanitization. This is something that we need to probably keep in place going forward, because we don't know how long this is going to last and how people's natural immunity will respond to this, and will it just kind of stay there and be something that's a concern always out there, and you have to arm yourself and prepare your organization to be able to mobilize rapidly when needed to.
And I think also kind of piggyback on that, you have, you know, healthcare organizations and the consulting work that we do, they don't always want remote work. But now that they had to basically say, okay, you guys can go remote to do the work, we're proving that it can be done remotely, which I think in the long run will be positive, because they'll be more open to it in the future, which in the long run actually lowers their costs because there's no expenses involved. And I think that's going to be a big change that I expect to see in our space.
Yeah, there's definitely.
Charlotte agrees.
Yeah, look at that. Too cute. Too cute.
Charlotte agrees.
No, I think there's going to be a new way of working, if you will. I think a lot of people are realizing that working from home isn't as bad as maybe other people made it out to be. I do think there has to be more active ways to get people to engage, because doing it remotely is harder. But I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see what office vacancies are like after this all clears up, right? Like whether we'll start to see it drop as people go, you know what, I don't need the 5,000 square foot. I can get away with 2,000 square feet or much smaller offices, because I just don't have my people here all the time. So it'll be interesting to see what those long-term effects are, because I think now, yes, everyone for the first time is getting a taste of, oh, this is what working from home is really like. Now, it'd be better if the kids weren't home too, but I think for most, they're realizing it's not so bad. It can work.
Not so bad for me. My kids are older, but that's just me. My dogs are much more of a threat to me than my children right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat you are, and Sarah. My kids are fine. They're like doing their own thing. They're doing the online stuff, and they're pretty much keeping themselves. But I totally empathize with people who have, you know, to come up with activities to keep their kids entertained, because otherwise they'd be crawling all over everything.
I just tweeted something about our local park being closed. They posted like a permanent sign that's like closed due to COVID-19. It's like a really official looking sign. And a lot of the families in the area that were still going through walks through the park and taking their kids to just kind of run out some willies and craziness, they're really frustrated about that, because especially our neighborhood has sidewalks, but a lot of the neighborhoods around us don't have sidewalks, and they don't feel it's safe for their kid to walk around. So I really do feel for all of you who do have littles at home, and mine are 12 and 13. I think our biggest challenge has been setting up a dance studio for my semi-professional ballerina at home, and making sure the floor is safe for point shoes. And you know, it's kind of funny. We're in this different world now where my husband's like, where are we going to move all this furniture since you're clearing it out and making a space for Izzy to dance? And I said, no one's coming to our house. We can't have anybody come over, so just put it on the entryway. Really? I mean, we don't need the entryway anymore. We don't need the guest room anymore. So it's kind of.
Dance floor looked good to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Hey, thanks guys for being on the call-in program. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being the baby, Larry.
Yeah, thanks for
You're
ringing the
welcome.
baby.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
awesome.
for Larry.
All right. Well, John, we've got 5 minutes left before we have to sign off on this one. But just to let everyone know that we will be
Maybe this
holding
one.
another one. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone today to get on the air, and we're just trying this as an experiment. So some of the things we're gonna learn from, like we obviously need some form of chat so that everyone can see the chats and things that the great questions people are asking and comments. And we'll definitely work on trying to get more of you on air with us. But it's a lot of fun, right, John? This interaction has been great. Hopefully the people watching have enjoyed it as well, and some of this sharing and some of the ideas put forward. And no, I've certainly found this hour to be fantastic. How about you?
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I think definitely give us any feedback. We didn't actually answer the question of what do you want to talk about here. So maybe we can push that one to Twitter or to email, or you guys know how to find us. We're pretty easy to find. So let us know, one, what you liked, what you didn't like, stop talking John, or whatever, whatever feedback you have, we're certainly open to it. And then of course, tweet us, email us any topics you think we should cover in the future, other things like that. This is an experiment for us. Tell us if you loved it, tell us if you hated it, or in between. We're definitely interested in your feedback.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things I learned from this is I think we can handle 2, 3 even on at the same time with us. I think that'll be okay. The trick is just trying to find enough time for everyone to offer something of value while on air. But I think our community is up for the challenge. But I think it'd be cool just to see more faces on the chat. Yeah, no, please, as John said, please email us, tweet us especially, and we will make sure that we will get a theme for the next one, which is happening in 2 weeks' time. So the next one is happening on April the 8th, right, Brittany? Is that right?
Yep, you got it.
April 8th, yeah. So at April 8th, same time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, we'll tweet out and send out the registration links and so forth so you can get all signed up. But we do appreciate everyone's time today. Please stay safe, practice safe physical distancing, but do not forget about the social interaction that you do need. And we're always available online and on Twitter. John and I are pretty good at responding. And hey, if there's a need to do this more frequently, let us know that as well, because we're happy to try and do that. All right.
Great.
Well, thank you
Thanks,
again to everyone who joined us. Yeah, really appreciate it. Take it easy. Have a safe week.
Ciao.